everybody, it's Christy from Mentally Kills, and I'm back with another interview. Today we have Mike Martin, so I'm going to bring him out for you guys to meet him. Hi, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Great. It's another day in paradise, so
Yeah, it's been a busy one at that.
yeah, and today is Labor Day, and this is supposed to be a day of relaxation, and yet here we are, busy, right?
Yes. But it was busy that was enjoyable.
Very true. I can actually attest to that. It was an enjoyable day. So I like to start off my interviews by letting you tell us about yourself. So let's hear it.
All right, so I'm Mike Martin, and depression and anxiety have been like a huge weight on my shoulders for my entire life. It got to a point where for me, self-worth came from other people. It was something that was dictated to me. I never knew how to find it within me, let alone how to project it. And it put me in positions for a lot of bad decisions and bad experiences. And ultimately, that led to two divorces, all kinds of things that I've had to go back and mop up and correct. But it was that second divorce that really made me realize that I lived my life behind a mask, and I had to work to shatter that mask. Because at the end of that, I was left homeless, living in my truck, bouncing between there and an old deer blind, with the last thing said to my face was, I had nothing to offer my wife or my family. So that night, I went back to the deer blind, and I intended to walk through that permanent door of suicide. Fortunately, somehow I woke up the next morning, and this is where the story starts to get, I guess, interesting and different, because I was listening to a podcast on my way to go through the day, and there just happened to be an author named Ryan Holiday on this show who was promoting a book and talking about a lot of Stoic philosophy. One of the lines that he said was a line by Marcus Aurelius, which basically, adversity and situations that you face are nothing more than an opportunity to prove who you truly are inside. When I heard that, I stopped and I thought, man, this isn't what I want my kids to remember me by. If I can take where I'm at right now, living out of my truck, and I can rebuild my life in a better way, and not only that, but become a better father out of it, then you know what? I'll truly have earned the title of father, and I'll probably even find not just redemption, but value within myself, and in a way that I can honestly project that into the world. So that led me to not only studying Stoic philosophy and getting into talk therapy, but it also really drove me to connect with Mother Nature and kind of look outside the box of the life that practices that I had, and start looking at my outdoor skills and the tools that I use in the outdoors as maybe a way that I could bridge the gap. Because I knew when I walked out the door being to be homeless, I really felt like the world was going to eat me up and I couldn't handle it. But when I thought, looking at that situation, when I go in the outdoors, when I go on a hunt, man, if I'm not making efforts to survive or thinking on my feet, it can go south really quick. And when you get yourself in a tough spot, you got to think outside the box. And well, all those trees that I've spent so much time around, they built the bridge that's brought me across that river.
Beautifully said. I love that. I love that. Oh, geez, sorry. There are a couple things I wanted to touch on that you said. Sorry, I knocked something over. Um, Number one, I just want to say it takes a lot of strength, especially with what you went through. Somebody who just made you feel like you had no value or purpose. I can't imagine how that would feel from somebody that you cared for and, gave your heart to. Beyond that, to be able to pull yourself up and say, this ain't it for me. Like, this is not what I want. This is not what I'm here for. My kids are not going to continue to see this, and pull yourself up like that. That's extremely honorable. And I commend you for that. Like, I could never do that. I don't have that kind of strength. But
Well, I appreciate that.
yeah. I just wanted to say that. But I also wanted to say another thing because the quote that you gave reminds me a lot of one of my favorite quotes, which is from J.K. Rowling, which says, "Rock bottom became the foundation where I built the rest of my life." And it's a beautiful sentiment, I don't want to say that we have to hit rock bottom to be great, but rock bottom kind of teaches us some lessons that we might not have learned if we hadn't hit it. Um,
Most definitely.
yeah. So I want to move on from there to number two, go into nature. As a nature girl myself, I'm from the Poconos. I have family on state game lands. Um, Trees just bring peace. They make people happy. Bob Ross says, "A happy little trees," right? That's for a reason. When we're outside, we're in nature, you're getting fresh air, and it's quiet and it's calm. There's no distractions. It is so much easier to kind of figure out yourself and what you're going through, what you want and what you need. Am I right?
No, that's true. It's very true. And a lot of it for me, and a lot of what I share with people, is this idea that when you just sit down against a tree, you're going to see so many things that you would miss in the concept of, in the process of moving along the trail. You sit still long enough, you'll see an animal come run by. Maybe a deer will stop and look at you. You get to kind of see the reaction. And then again, there's so much about the outdoors and natural animal behavior that we can look at and
Learn
kind of build a story around to teach us something. If you think back to our ancestors, that's where the art of storytelling came from, and that's why it was invented, was so that they could understand the world around them. And I feel like getting out there in that more mindful aspect, using those tools of being present, meditation, deep thought, even reaching back into history and taking some philosophical school or point of view with you, opens up a whole new vocabulary to kind of digest and put a story to whatever it is you're going through. And it'd be so much different than the story you would come up with while you're, say, caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life, bouncing between work and your family obligations and any other obligations you have, answering emails, jumping on meetings, whatever it is. You don't get that time to just become center.
I agree to that, and I actually want to add to that a little bit because that's a great point that you brought up. We spend so much time in our day to day lives on autopilot, and especially my generation. I'm 30. A lot of them are already married. They've been married. They've been established. What time did you take before then, and then running into the hustle and bustle of everyday life? What time did you take to actually figure out what you want? You know, what you need, what you think, what you feel for your life. If you don't take that time for yourself, how long can you wear a mask or be on autopilot before you are the autopilot or you become the mask or it eats you alive? And then you have these mental breakdowns that people have because they don't take time for themselves to figure out what they want, what brings them joy. So I just want to add that in.
No, definitely. And I think to build on that, there's a quote from Daniel Boone that we're never truly lost. Maybe we get turned around for a couple of days. And I feel like that's a lot of us as we get so caught up in just walking down the trail of, what's expected of us, what we're taught growing up is kind of like, this is where you're going to go in life.
That's right.
That when you lose sight of yourself in that way, the autopilot clicks on, and then kind of like my experience where you're sitting in a parking lot staring in the rear view mirror of your truck, and that's all you got. And you go, man, I don't know where to go from here. So then you got to start asking yourself a lot of hard questions.
That's right.
And
you have to be honest.
yes, and a lot of these journeys for a lot of people, that's the hang up. That's where maybe that mask that they were wearing, they shatter, they throw it on the ground. They get to the question, and either they can't be honest with themselves or whatever the case may be, so they just build up another one. That's a natural instinct for protection.
Chameleon.
Yes. And I've been there. I've done that, masking one thing to another. In fact, that's how I ended up in 2 different marriages that both crumbled. But it's when you really face yourself, because before this journey, I remember being, I'd go out to deer hunt, and it wasn't exactly the same as it was then as it was now, because nowadays I'm comfortable sitting with myself. Then I wasn't so okay with it because those answers kind of scared me. I didn't know what was there. But, in studying philosophy and coming across, there's a quote by Seneca where if you've never truly been tested, you don't know who you are. And those are the kind of people that you should fear. And that's why I feel like, a lot of us walk around with that fear of ourselves, that fear of the silence. I think that's where that comes from, is it's untested water.
I agree. And I also agree to some extent it's because we're a product of our environment. Mental health was not talked about. It was suck it up, or you don't know what tired is, or so who takes the time to sit and think, am I tired? No, they just do what they're told. I'm not tired. I don't know what that is. And they keep going. They don't ask those questions for themselves to find out more about themselves because they're not taught to, you know? So I think that has a big part to play in it too. And you're right. You're absolutely right. No one wants to sit by themselves and reflect ever because it requires a level of accountability that most people are not ready for. You know, looking back at mistakes and not going, oh, well, nah. No, you have to look at it. You have to look at that mistake. You have to learn something from it. Otherwise, what was the purpose? Um, we spend most of our lives hiding behind a mask or, like you said, on autopilot. And um, it's gross to me. I did that for a long time and it ate me alive, literally. And I almost died. So I love that you said that too earlier about the mask because that's something I brought up on another episode on a show that I was on. And I'll send that clip to you actually, just so you can hear it. But I feel like when you find and sit by yourself. So for me, it's writing. I write a lot. I'm a reader and a writer. So I'll sit down and I'll write. What do I want? I don't have to answer it right then. I start writing questions. That's a base point. It's somewhere to start. You know, that's what I do personally. What do you do when you sit and reflect and you really want to work on yourself? What's one thing that you like sit and do, or maybe somewhere you go? Obviously the woods, but
I've got my spots along, like, along in the woods and along the river that I like to go sit. And there's a couple of books that I carry with me all the time. One of them being Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And then another one being My Mother is the Wind, which was written by, that's the name of it. It was written by Bear, and I can't remember his last name, but he was a Indian healer.
I heard that before.
And then the third one, the third one is the Discourse by Epictetus. And those are always with me. At least one of them is in my backpack or in my fishing bag, whatever. And when I want to go and just sit and kind of work on things, I'll just pull one out and just open to a page and start reading. And the reason that I do that is because these people have been through things, right?
Right.
And if you take Marcus Aurelius, for example, this is the one that really kind of walked me down this rabbit hole, is in his lifetime, he was the most powerful man in the world. He was the emperor of Rome. And, doing the job of an emperor, ruling Rome, dealing with constant war, all the treachery and everything going on behind his back, the Antonine Plague, and on top of that, how many children that he lost early.
Yeah.
And they discovered the book, which was never actually meant to be distributed. It was the meditations was something that he wrote for himself, to himself. And he's sitting there, in a war camp, taking a couple of quiet minutes to himself, trying to sort out and figure the same things I am. Trying to deal with the depression, deal with the anxieties, the rigors of life. So yeah, the context can be different, but it can apply so well to what you're going through just based on, and yeah, that was actually at Bearheart. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that was, what I was saying was, it's just that outline. It gives you it gives you a direction to focus your thoughts. And then I'll pull out a journal
Very
and I'll
nice.
just
So
write.
glad you said that.
I actually keep 6 different journals. It's crazy.
I have ADHD, so I lose them half the time. So I probably have about 12 scattered around. I try to keep different ideas and different things. Like I write poetry in one, and one is like stories, and then one is me, how I'm feeling, right now, present me, and then I have another one. It's like past me, like let's kind of try to work on that childhood trauma, but that one don't get touched often, um,
Right.
right now anyway. Um it, i i agree with what you said. Sometimes like taking that first step is kind of a problem. You're stuck, you don't even know where to go. Like we have no idea what we're doing. There's no guide to mental health like there should be, like there will be once we're done. I'm kidding, but like there's no guide, kind of like there's no guide to parenting. There's a lot of people out there that hate their parents for the way that they were raised or what they went through, but what guide do they have? There's no handbook that says, hey, if you do it this way, you're ace. No, we're all learning
Exactly.
by experience. It's the same thing with mental health. We're just trying to figure out ways to kind of band together, not in symptoms, but as a whole. Like we're all like kind of not okay, but like we're okay, but we're not. So like getting together and doing that, and by having these interviews and doing things like you're journaling, you know, um, who's to say one day you won't publish it? Say this is what I went through, and 12,000 people are already in line to buy it because they're like, bro, same, like other people are
Yeah.
going through it. So there's not enough material out. And there's no guidebook, there's no manual. So we're all just kind of rolling with it. And I'm glad that you found several ways. First of all, I'm a book lover. So I'm all about carrying a book with you wherever you go. For me, I have a comfort book. It's not something I go to when I'm trying to figure myself out. It's something I go to when I'm feeling overwhelmed because I'm like, I need something calm, something familiar, something I know. And that's how I use books. And you use them for more educational to discover more about yourself. And that's amazing. So most people don't.
No,
So
it was kind of like one of those things you stumble into and you just figure out what works for you. And what I like about, this obviously being here doing this, but the different podcasts and all that are out there on the subject is it winds up becoming like a big melting pot. We're all trying to figure this shit out in real time.
that's right.
And the more ideas that we put on the table and we get to test all these different theories, we're going to help somebody.
Yeah. Hey, one person is enough for me.
Exactly.
One person's enough. There's so many people out there that forget that they have value and that they matter. So if we could say, hey, I kind of feel like that sometimes too, but I know that I matter. I just don't feel that way sometimes. Having these outlets or these videos, where we're admitting like, same, it goes back to same,
Right.
That this is the one that little, people comment relatable and they share it to their timeline, but it is, and it makes it more serious and more okay and more more widespread, so more education can be discovered for it, if that makes sense the way I'm describing it. There's more an opportunity to study through each other and learn different things in different ways and different symptoms and how to do things, different outlets. I had a girl that I spoke to, she had bipolar 2, which is pretty close to my borderline personality. And she said, I was mentioning that I have sensory issues. If things are too loud, it freaks me out. She was like, wait a minute, I have that too. And both of us who have done extensive research in our own disorders didn't realize how similar they were. So it just goes to show you, just by having these kinds of things and seeing all the mental health podcasts, I love that. I love seeing it. I will admit the only thing I don't really like seeing too much are the coaches, because I don't feel like any one person should tell another, even if they have the same condition, what they should and shouldn't do. And that kind of seems like that's what they're doing. And I don't think they should charge for it either. I don't see the point in that. That's just a personal opinion. But I love seeing I do like seeing coaches, just not the ones that charge, basically. Or, I see therapists coming on different podcasts. They're not getting paid for this. They'll sit there for an hour and they'll help people just to do it. It's just so great. So with that being said, you have a podcast of your own, and I want to hear more about it.
That I do. It is called Project Mindfully Outdoors, and it goes along with the website, projectmindfullyoutdoors.com. It all got kicked off more as a blog than anything. It was kind of my idea of, hey, this podcast helped me. Let me work my way up to doing that. And originally started out kind of more of a journal, almost. Okay. And as it caught on, people started reaching out and were like, hey, what about if you had this, you had that? So it's been, that word project has kind of been key to this whole thing, because it's been this evolving thing. And now it's become, the camp of healing, mixed with a little backwoods philosophy. So, which is fun, because I take the concept of all my favorite philosophers, and they're, I mentioned earlier about the Stoicism, but that's just one school of it. We get to dive into all these different camps and explore and test all these different theories to see what really works. And there's no right or wrong answer to it. It's just a matter of taking little pieces each day and throwing them out there, giving you something to think about, to journal about, and help you get through the day. Maybe it's a little motivation. Maybe it's one of those hard questions that I throw in there and trick you to really think about, that pushes you to go forward. But the part that I really love about it and that I really enjoy about it is the fact that, as much as that is one of my passions, my biggest passion is the conservation and the stewardship that go along with being a sportsman in the outdoors. And I've figured out this really cool way to tie that all together. And that's what I love to showcase to people, is not only is there hope, and not only is there a way to magnetize that compass and, point it back to your true north, because we've all been through hell. We all get lost. And like I mentioned earlier, we're never truly lost. We get turned around in the woods a few days, but that's okay. And when you do all that, you jump into this stuff, you get to expose yourself to, you're inevitably going to find something new. Because I get a lot of people that listen to it and get turned on to the show and the project who are petrified of going in the outdoors. They're petrified of going to a park even sometimes.
Yeah.
They want to, but they're scared. And just the way that it's presented, they're like, you know what? I can do it. I can go drive up to that state park, and I can go park and walk to the trailhead. I'll touch it. It's that fun of exploring and realizing that we can do these things.
Yeah.
that really mother nature is not to be feared. There's elements that you may have to take a little bit more caution and prepare a little bit more for, but really the gift that she gives each and every one of us is accessible and without the need to fear it. You just have to open yourself to it.
And it's free. So you don't have to open your wallet
Exactly.
either.
Exactly.
And I love the way that you said that. We go into nature as a sense of calm or peace or adventure, and you're taking it to that next level. Like, you know, I'm going to help back because that's what's been given to me. I've been given peace. Now I'm going to do what I can to give back to Mother Nature, and in a sense, um, and I mean, even by spreading the word, it's doing that. More people are going to be in the woods tomorrow. I promise. I probably will be. So let's see how the weather goes.
Definitely. And I think to even build on that, the how you mentioned about coaches earlier,
Yeah.
during this little break that I've taken, I've explored the concept of outdoor healing. And it's a lot of that same kind of stuff, like that granola kind of hippie stuff and whatnot. And it's not so much relatable to a lot of guys out there, or
Yeah.
even a lot of outdoors women or women in general. It's kind of like you look at it like the kind of like Bob Ross. We all look at him nowadays as like this pop culture buzz phenomenon, right? He
Yeah.
really had some good intention in there.
Yes, he
He
did.
really had the idea of bringing that mindfulness and all those sort of things in. Now, each one of these outdoor healing concepts, they try to do the same thing, but they're missing that real relatable element, that brings it into really the more the vast the vast population, because you've got your handful of people out there that they're like, yeah, that works, but a lot of us need that thrill and that adventure to really bring us into that moment.
I
And
agree.
that's where Project Mindfully Outdoors plays that part. It fills the gap of, you need those sort of things, but I got no direction where to go. In fact, I'll tell you what, for it being Labor Day today, I have been extremely busy because I had a couple of guys reach out to me the other day that have been listening for a while, and they just completed hunter safety. They wanted to go out goose
Yeah.
hunting. And, goose hunting just opened its early season here around me in Michigan, but they didn't know where to go. So they reached out, asked me for suggestions. I was in the field with them all morning, and
Amazing.
we packed a 3-man limit. So good day there. 2 hours later, I was on the water with somebody else, just slamming catfish.
There you
And
go.
it's all
I'll be
about
waiting
that
for my
community.
package in the mail with all the food.
It's about that community. That's
Yeah.
where we build things, and that's where the ice gets broke, that we can learn to talk to each other and bounce ideas off each other. And I like to be that sentence that kind of gets it going.
That's beautiful. Well, we're reaching the end of our interview here, so I'll give you a minute to give your final thoughts, and then I'll drop you out so I can give mine, and then I'll come back to you. Is there anything you want to say, or maybe a word of wisdom, or you know, one of your quotes, so we can
Let's see, word of
be
wisdom.
inspired?
Actually, you know what? I'll jump in with a quote from Marcus
Okay.
Aurelius. You never step in the same river twice. And I think that applies to each and every one of us, because as we walk this circle of life, we inevitably face the same river. And it'll never look the same because you're in a different position. You're in a
Yep.
different situation, different frame of mind from where you were the last time you stepped there. And I can relate that to my life with a quick story.
Sure.
Being this journey started out lost and no idea what I was doing, being homeless. I got everything back together, had a setback, wound up being homeless. And instead of falling back into that same old mindset, I had built these skills and these abilities that when I got to that second time at the river, I was able to just continue to build and cross and go forward. And I think that's an important element that can help anybody listening to this podcast here today.
Well, that was beautifully said. And now I'm thinking about Pocahontas. So I'm going to go listen to that song after this. But yeah, it is a great quote and it does fit perfectly. And I want to thank you again for not only being on the podcast, but for everything you're doing to inspire and help others so that other people don't have to feel or learn it the hard way, you know?
Yes. And I appreciate that. And thank you for having me.
Yep, anytime. And I'm sure we'll see you again soon. So I'm going to drop you out now and give my final thoughts, and I'll be right back with you.
All right.
Okay. So, some really interesting key points to take from here. Number one, it is okay to be vulnerable, even if you're a man. Yes, I said it. Number two, coaches, stop looking to teach people your way. Look to guide them to find their own way of healing and their own way of dealing, because no two mental illness symptoms are the same, even if it's the same diagnosis. Definitely take a foot, step it out in nature, write about it, read about it, take time for you, first and foremost. I always recommend the woods because I like to get my feet dirty, but if the woods aren't for you, find what does. Go sit at a park, go sit by the river, go sit in your bathroom. Wherever you find peace, find it. But if you don't take that first step, you're never going to get anywhere. And we're here for you because you matter and we want you here. So, for more information about Mike, you can go to projectmindfullyoutdoors.com and make sure you tune into his Project Mindfully Outdoor podcast because I'm going right there after this. So, that being said, this has been another Mentally Kills interview. I'm Christy, and we'll see you on the next one.